Hello, folks. I did put out yesterday that I was going to go live for at 5 o'clock today. It might be a few minutes early, but we'll see who shows up and then we'll go from there. But I hope you're all having a very good and prosperous and happy Sunday. I can't believe right now we are almost halfway through the month already. So time does fly, doesn't it? So anyway, the point today, as you see in the video, was relationships, friends, foe, etc. And the goal here is when we talk about friendships and relationships, many years ago when I was much younger, I didn't worry about things that would go crazy about relationships. And then as I got older finished my PhD, I realized that you have to do things personally that are within your what I call boundaries. And uh, when we talk into a relationship, that they give up some of their identity. And as a psychologist, I cannot fault somebody because I think a lot of times a lot of people will get into a relationship and not think about the consequences of whether this person is good or bad for them as well. So when we talk about this, people, let me step back a step and say we're in the mammal failing, and in essence, a lot of males want to populate with their sperm and etc. And the goal with this, with people, is we are attracted to somebody first without really knowing them, and that has happened to me quite a few times as well, as where I'm attracted to somebody or in the vice versa too, that someone's attracted to me and then they find out, well, this is not really what I'm looking for. And then when sex is thrown into it, it really makes for a very sticky relationship. So when we talk about this, the first goal that we really need to deal with this, and I'm a big component of this, is setting our boundaries. And once we set our boundaries, we can move things in a direction that is very meaningful and very prosperous in our relationships. The goal that happens with a lot of people, like I said just a few minutes ago, is we get attracted to somebody, and then I always call it the honeymoon phase. And once that honeymoon phase is gone, we really see the true nature of a person in that time. And the goal is necessarily, do we find that person attracted, but is that person really the right person for us? So in essence, what we're talking about here is, are we really moving things in a direction that in our lives that really doesn't create us additional stress, additional anxiety, like depression, etc. And the answer to this is, like in my case, I always look at the positive aspect of it, and not necessarily look at the negative aspect of things. If you keep a positive outlook on something, this is where things move in a direction that is very helpful. So when we look at something, we take a look at this and we move in a direction that is a positive aspect in our relationships with other people. And I'm not just talking about relationships in dating, which are essential, but you have relationships at work, relationships with friends, and All that is very critical. You have business relationships. It's like for me right now, I'm looking at discerning where I want to be in life and where things fit in life. But I also remember I have children involved. So whatever decision I make affects their lives too. And that's something that, I've learned over time too. And it's not necessarily a good and bad thing. It's just what works and what doesn't work in a relationship. And when we get into that situation where we think that something is not right, we need to assess whether that is like a foe or is that a friend. Now, I'm not asking people to say, like, for instance, some people get into an abusive relationship where the person always yells at them, hits on them. That none of that is called for. I don't believe in yelling in a relationship because, in essence, when you start yelling with somebody, you're turning that other person off, and you really need to have active listening skills. But once you start yelling with somebody, you actually turn that information off because they're gonna there there's that whole thing I call fight, freeze, or yeah, it's the three S: fight, freeze, or flee. And a lot of people will either, and in that case, when they hear somebody yelling at them, they'll come up with like I said, with the fight, free, or freeze. And a tendency, depending on the personality, they'll either flee or they'll fight. And some people will not say anything because they're taken back by the whole thing and they just freeze. So in essence, folks, what we try to do in life is set up where we're not doing our what I call these are our basic instincts in life. And especially if you're in any type of relationship, whether that's work relationship, friend relationship, or a significant other relationship, you don't want to set up a very toxic type of relationship with that. In essence, what you're doing here is you're actually creating a background where someone can be able to be open to be able to come to you with anything. And that's the thing that something that I'm learning more with, because with my readings and then with my PhD, that you got to keep an open mind during this. And number two, you need to be able to articulate, which means get your point across to that person without being angry or without being threatening to that other person as well. The point I'd like to see is that we make an effort to do the best we can in every situation and leave that situation in a very communicative role. The problem that occurs, though, is like myself. I had a great time. I did a Zoom speech on Friday. It went really well. People were very receptive. I actually talked for an hour and a half before I even began this speech. I didn't even know if I could talk an hour and a half, but they gave me an hour and a half. But what I need to do now, for instance, in that situation, is now pick up my A game, because since it was on a Zoom, I need to start doing this stuff in person. For instance, this week I'm supposed to go to Chicago. I don't know, with me moving and everything else like that, I'm going to make an attempt to go, but I don't know where all the situation lies out with this as well. So with that said, the goal in life, like I said, in relationships, is to always hold your boundaries and make things into an area where you feel very comfortable with. The other issue that I have talked about, and which is very important, is when I said friend or foe, is getting that point across to a person. In other words, what you're trying to tell that person is that this is what things have to be. And I'm learning to be more articulate about that than, say, in the past. And what I'm also trying to do, especially amongst my friends, is not judge others. And I said this at the speech. on Friday night is when you point your finger at somebody else, you're actually giving up your authority to that person. So really pointing the finger at somebody, you're giving up part of that authority. You're giving up part of your personality, your wisdom, your empowerment. So in essence, pointing a finger at somebody and say, well, that's your fault. It's not necessarily their fault. You have to judge where that person is. And it's really difficult to judge somebody because you're not living or walking in their shoes. So in essence, what I try to tell people, excuse me, is do things in a way that helps and maintains your own sanity and doesn't add additional, what I call drama, stress, anxiety to your own life. For instance, a friend called me yesterday, and I've been trying to work on, I'm multitasking right now. I've been trying to find a new place, doing other things in life. And this happened last May as well, not necessarily in April, but in May. And my rationale behind this is they have a tendency to work their things out in due time. So I had some calls, and like today I was working on prepping some things with this, discerning what I wanted to do, did some reading. But the point that I'm making out of this is you have to keep a positive mindset. And the point is you try to figure out where things are going in life and then move forward with that. So with that said, I will also say, and this will be my final point on this, is when I say friend or foe and etc., the point is you have to not necessarily judge that person and where you're at in your life. And I said that a few minutes ago, but you have to see in a perspective in their life. And that part of that becomes with active listening and also communicating in a positive tone. A lot of people start yelling, screaming, and you don't get anywhere with that. The point is you try to comprehend what that person's saying and move forward. There's some things that I always judge things. For instance, I will say, for instance, if I have a friendship with somebody, can I see this friendship 6 months from now, 8 months from now, a year from now? And if I cannot answer with a solid yes in that situation, then there's some assessment, there's some meditation I need to do to figure out why I do not feel that way. Because really, most of your friends, if it's your wife or your significant other, the resounding answer on that should be absolutely yes. But when you don't get that answer, you need to assess why you feel that way. And is this something to do with yourself, that why you feel this way? And sometimes what you'll find out, for the most part, is not necessarily what that person is doing, but it's some kind of inequalities or something that you don't feel comfortable about, or it's something that you don't feel about the unknown. I said this to somebody, I believe yesterday. I was doing a speech with somebody yesterday, or reached out and did a conference with somebody with a quick seminar. Somebody was saying something to me, and I said, "Oh, life is hard." And I said, "Life is hard. It's constantly. Life is hard, and life is not fair. But it's what you do with those situations when it's not fair and when life is hard that makes you and develops you into a better person." I have a saying, and I put it up on my bulletin board here: a winner never quits, a quitter never wins. And I have to always assess that myself, because when I was younger, I would quit things. And it always, when I was younger, when I was like in my early teens, or I would quit things. And then certain things I would not quit, or I'd give up on something very easily without, pursuing it. It's God gives us the grace, and this is my final point. God gives us the grace to get through this. Like this morning, I was grateful that I got up because God has given me another day to do whatever my mission is in life. So the goal here is I'm grateful for the day and I move forward with that day. And will that day be very hard? Chances are yes. Will it be some issues with anxiety in that? Most likely. But it's what I do with that. For instance, I was call some people about some things, business stuff, and move forward. And there was a couple of things that money that's supposed to be coming into my account that's not there yet. And I had to reach out to some people and said, well, the money's not there yet. And I'll find out what's going on with this on Monday. It's really hard to get a hold of somebody on a Sunday anyway. But the point here is it's what we do with those adversities that makes or breaks our lives. And I shouldn't say break our lives, but it transforms us. And something I've learned because we're now with the PhD is perseverance. You just got to keep plugging along, plugging along, plugging along. And one thing I also said, I told yesterday to somebody, I always like options. So with the option A, there's option B, there's option C, there's option D, E, F, whatever there is. And there's things that I can go on that, but I'd like to do it. I don't want to do it. When I was younger, I would always count on my dad, my mom, or somebody like in my family to help me out. I don't want to do that anymore because part of that struggle in life is getting over that mountain or coming over that struggle by yourself. So anyway, that's my thoughts for today about friends, foes, and relationships. And like I said, relationships are the same way as well. There are going to be rough spots. There are going to be happy spots. There are going to be rough spots. There are going to be happy spots. But it's what we do with those rough spots, I should say, that make things a lot better. Please like and subscribe on my videos. My goal is at least to do one live broadcast, either a Saturday or a Sunday. I will probably do a video on Wednesday of this week. It depends on whether I'd like to, and I'm planning on going out of town on Thursday to Chicago. Hopefully, we're hoping. I'm planning on it, put it that way. And with that, please like and subscribe. Feel free to reach out to me by email, bthomasmillerpsych. That's bthomasmiller, as it's spelled, bthomasmillerpsych@gmail.com. Anyway, folks, I appreciate the time and the energy that you put into watching my videos and hope to talk to you soon. Thanks and have a great day.